What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Flyin Style Podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Mitchell, back with my illustrious co-host, Steven Maslij.
What's up, Matthew?
What is up, Steven? We are coming back to you guys with a 24-20 win over the Cowboys in the season opener. The Eagles are 1-0. We are happy campers over here. I know I can say I am. How did you feel about the game, Steve?
Well, it started off with a spit show. Jalen Carter getting ejected from the game before the game even started was awesome. When he saw Dak and before the first snap even happened, gets kicked out of the game, which honestly, it had a big impact on the game. I think everyone knew that, but it just showed how much Jalen Carter matters to this D line and shows how dominant he actually is for taking double teams and helping everyone else out. The game was Jalen looked great. The key headlines are like AJ only got one catch for 8 yards. You know, I like how Jalen played. Honestly, I really like how he played. He was in the pocket. 19 for 23. Just not a crazy stat line. This isn't a crazy box score game that you look back at and love, but there was a couple catches late in the game by CD that he didn't make. Some things went our way. Obviously, had that big rain delay that after Miles Sanders fumbled, just couldn't get any momentum under us, which is great. It was a weird game to start off the season. Just a lot of stuff, just going back and forth. But we put out the win. We showed that we were the better team. And yeah, I have some concerns. We'll get into them. But what do you think of the game?
I thought it was great. Like you said, it was definitely a weird game from start to finish. A lot of things, went up and down for the Eagles and the Cowboys on both sides. Obviously, starting the game with losing your best defensive player before snap happens, as well as losing your fullback for the whole season. That was something I was excited about. I don't know about you. Like, first year with a fullback on the roster, listed on the depth chart, and you lose him on the first play of the game. He's supposed to be obviously it's not his fault, but I was like, why is the guy who's supposed to be the toughest guy on the field down on the first play of the game? Like, what are we talking about? And before I even turned my head, Jalen Carter's getting kicked out of the game. And I was like, what is going on? So obviously it was a crazy start. Before we, jump into the aspects of the game, I do want to ask you, what did you think about the Jalen Carter situation specifically? Like, what did you think about, the situation? Did you see any of the videos of Dak Prescott, looking back at him, maybe giving a bit of a grin after he spit? It's kind of hard to decide if it was intentional or not. There's some lip reading that was being done for some people. I don't know what to think of it. What did you think?
Well, I think Jalen Carter got antagonized. However, he's just immature. He has to know better. He's been a little immature throughout just his entire short career that he's had. We've heard stories about late practices, obviously the incident before the draft and things like that. He just has to mature a little bit and know that if he were to retaliate, even though Dak did spit in his general direction, it's not gonna go well for him. I don't think he expected to get ejected, but I think this overall is gonna be a good learning lesson for him. I think he let a lot of people down on his team. I think he's gonna have to learn from this because it just you're hurting yourself and your teammates, and it's obviously he's not going to get suspended for this game coming up against the Chiefs, which is awesome because they served as one game last week, but not fined too much. He got fined what he gets paid per week, so he lost 1 week worth of pay. Whoop-de-doo. But I mean, I don't blame him for doing that, but it's just a stupid thing to do. I know it's all moment. You just want to talk stuff back to Dak. You're hyped for the game, but you just have to know in that situation, be more mature to not ever retaliate, never hit anyone back. And it's just stupid on his part. Honestly, it's just straight up you just have to know better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I was incredibly disappointed when I saw it because you would like to think that he would know better by now because he's been through so many of these situations and was on, a culture of a Super Bowl winning team last year who, really buckled down and tried to work through adversity. And, that was their big motto. And I would have liked to think that he learned from those guys and understood, he's been on a lot of championship rosters. You'd think he'd understand, what it takes to work as a team. And for him to do that in the first play of the game when he's clearly one of the leaders of the defense at this point, it was very disappointing to see that he's still as immature as he is. No matter what the situation is, whether Dak Prescott said what he said or spat at him, whatever it may be, there was a ref standing right there. There was no way, shape, or form you were ever going to get away with that. Why did you think it was you have no impulse control to stop yourself to say, no, this is a bad idea. And on top of that, it was just disappointing to see that there was nobody on the defense side of the ball that was stopping him from walking over to their huddle. Somebody should have grabbed him and said, yo, get your head in the game. Come on, don't start right now, because we all know that he has problems. His teammates know he, starts problems with his mouth a lot. So I was a little disappointed with the whole situation. I know it kind of caught everybody off guard. Nobody was really expecting it to happen that quick. But at the same time, I just wish it was handled a little bit better on both sides. I do think that the team will probably discipline him in their own way, whether that means that he won't be out for the first few snaps of the game or whether he's going to owe more money to the team in general. I'm sure they will be disciplining him further behind closed doors. But it was rough to see on the first play of the game. But anyway, we'll move on from that. It was a weird way to start the season, but at least it felt reminiscent of a good Dallas Eagles rivalry,
Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys went right down the field after that and scored a touchdown to start off the game. And
that they did. I don't think there's any doubt that him being off the field impacted the team greatly. We obviously had no pass rush the rest of the game. The run was doing whatever they felt like for most of the game. And although it was a way to kind of highlight how well Jordan Davis has been coming along, we'll get into that as well in a minute, but it very much hurt the team to have him out. And it's a little bit scary to see how much it affects the team to have him out.
Yeah, it was brutal. And even Jomo didn't look so great going against the guys. But again, I turned to my friend Mike here, and he was like, Millen Williams would be doing the same thing because he's so used to getting double teamed or having just a single guy on him. So I mean, I don't think it's the lack and loss of the players around us that we lost in the offseason. I think it's more just losing Jalen is such an impact on his team, and it changes the entire defense, honestly, the entire front five, every single time. But I mean, I like what I saw Jordan Davis. I like that I saw Nolan Smith a little bit. The flexing penalty was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that was crazy. I can't even blame him for that. I mean, I guess what you can blame him for is I'm sure the coaches, told him to look out for that, considering the league has put everybody on notice that it's going to be enforced a lot harder this year, which I will forever think is bogus. I think everybody does. Why do you care about taunting? Why does it matter? But
it's not like Trayvon Diggs followed Jalen Hurts back to Jalen's bench after.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't matter at all, to the point that Jalen had to push him off. I don't understand what the why standing. I don't know. I understand it, but I don't. I think the rule's bogus. I understand how the rule works. I don't agree with how the rule works, and that part sucked. But it was also pretty disappointing to see how many penalties we did actually put up in this game. We struggle with penalties. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I forget how many we had. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble pulling it up, but I believe we had something like 9 penalties for over 100 yards, and it was drastically more than the Cowboys did, and it was a big reason that they stayed in the game, and a big reason they continued drives a lot of times. I think at least 2, if not 3 or 4 times, a drive was extended on 3rd down because of a penalty, and there was a lot of times it happened in really critical moments that kept them in the game, and we've just talked about the fact that there's really not a lot of veteran leadership on this defense. And I think that that's going to be a real key, that somebody's really going to have to step up and take over that leadership role heavily, because clearly there's a bit of, young inexperience on this defense, and it's clearly the weak spot of our team at this very moment. I'm not going to go ahead and say that they can't, wrap it up and turn it around, because we saw the same thing happen last year. And through 4 weeks, our defense was incredibly concerning and then became the number 1 defense in the league. Understandably, this is a brand new season, and I'm not saying they're just going to do that. But I also know the Eagles well enough to know that they take a few weeks to kick into full throttle and, kind of get their footing and figure out how everything's going. So until they get that second quarterback situation figured out, though, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we can just jump right into that. That was probably the most glaring problem with the team. What do you think they can do moving forward to, lessen the blow of not having a surefire number 2 corner on the outside?
I will say, Fangio came out and said, I believe Adori's starting this week again.
Ooh,
I will say
hear that news.
from what we've seen of him, he's gone against CeeDee Lamb and the entire game, which was through the first 3 quarters, I was wise Adoree on him. However, he got torched by CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase during preseason. I would love to see him go against a wide receiver 2 constantly. I don't know how bad he is. I know he wasn't playing fantastic, but like, you can't always just expect to have an all-pro corner on the other side of another all-pro corner. Like, it's something we're gonna have to deal with. I mean, we can try to using Bennett a little bit more. We could try like cycling in another free agent, but I still have a little faith in him. I was confused through the first 3 quarters of why Quinyon was not on CD, but maybe that was part of the game plan to distract the Cowboys, to throw them off a little bit, thinking, oh, we're going to have Pickens versus Dory the entire game. But it clearly wasn't fantastic on his side. But it's also hard to say because you're going against one of the premier receivers in the league.
Yeah, I understand that. It's definitely, something to say that he's gone against 2 of the best receivers in the league. But you're not going to see that drastic of a drop-off with every team you're going to play. We're going to see a top receiver every time you play a team almost. So I was a little bit upset that, like you said, we kept seeing him on CD for like almost every play. You heard all week leading up to it that Quinyon's going to follow the number 1 receiver. You're actually hearing it all summer, and he's going to follow around the number 1 receiver because we know what we have in him, and we know he can cover that number 1 guy. And then it felt like it was the exact opposite. Not only did we have Adoree Jackson on CeeDee Lamb, but it felt like it was every single play. And it was like, hello, can we please just put somebody out there that can cover CeeDee Lamb? Because clearly Adoree Jackson can't do it. And I understand that it's early, and I understand from a technique standpoint, there's probably a lot of things that he did well that we're not seeing as fans that may not have been his assignment, or, some of the ins and outs of that little stuff. But for the most part, it seemed like he was out of position a lot. His tackling was definitely something to be desired. And he looked, based off of last year and where he's been in his career in the past couple of years, it looks like he's just a little bit long in the tooth, and that he may not be as talented as he once was. But at the same time, I'm not going to give up on him yet, like you said, either. I just don't want to see him getting every single rep either. Like, if he's getting torched, I want him out of the game and at least rotating with somebody else, or like change the game plan up. Don't just keep trying to do the same thing and hoping for a different outcome. I just don't see the benefit in that. Maybe there is something that I'm missing, but I felt like there were a lot of times that you could have, I don't know. I know it's easier said than done to just have them switch, but I feel like something could have been done, or at least given better safety help the back end to Adoree Jackson.
Yeah, make it a statement in the when you have Adoree to actually shadow, but then that opens up more holes across them. But regardless of that, when he played zone against AJ Brown, he didn't do too hot. Some of his quotes coming from after the game: "I'm not hurt. I wasn't a decoy. I got zoned all game. Not one single man rep. Obviously, there won't be any separation." How do you feel about that and his comments / how he played during the game and only getting 1 target?
Well, I watched the clip of him saying that, like the video clip, and he was like giggling. He had a playful attitude while he was saying that, and I don't think anything of the comment by any means. I think that he has a a fact to that. If you're sitting in zone coverage, you're not having like press man. It's not like a release thing. There's not a separation stat to be had. So I understand what he's saying with that, and I do think that him not getting open is half true. I did see a lot of reps that he was just kind of fully covered, and I wouldn't necessarily say that was his fault. I think it was just the route combinations. There was a lot of times they dropped into the proper coverage to just kind of have that wrapped up, and there was also a few times that he was open. And aside from all of that, I do wish that Jalen would be a little more fearless with the ball. I understand that he had, a year where he had some turnover trouble and then another half a year where it seemed to be on the same track. And last year they told him to dial it back a little bit, lead on the run and to keep the ball out of harm's way. But I do think, when we talk about Jalen being in that upper echelon of quarterbacks now, I don't think you see those guys being afraid to throw the ball to their number one guy. They're not scared to put the ball in harm's way to get it to their guy. And I think that Jalen needs to step up in that regard and sometimes not put the ball in harm's way, but give his guy a chance, get the ball. Who cares if it's a little covered? Get the ball to your guy. Like, try. And I think that Jalen, despite the fact that I think he did very well with his quick decision-making and he looked calm and poised in the pocket and he seemed very confident in what he was doing, he was looking at AJ and seeing that he was covered for half a second and then going on to his next read immediately, and then that read was gone and AJ's not in the play anymore for him. And I think that he has to do a better job of understanding that's AJ freaking Brown, and get him the ball. And same with Devontae Smith. I don't think he did a great job of, getting those guys open. I think that they played a zone and were giving up a lot of dink and dunk, and he was taking what was given to him, but he was not pressing the offense. He was letting the defense command what the offense did, not the other way around. And I think for him to take that next step, he really does have to start, forcing his way and showing that he can, will guys open, that he can throw a ball at any point of the field, that he's not a dink and dunker, and that he's not just a manager. I know he's got the arm, I know he's got the talent, but he does have to do a better job of forcing that ball in there and, getting guys open with your arm and letting them make plays.
Yeah, I mean, the only issue with that is if he starts doing that, he throws picks. It's gonna be why you forcing that ball. That's the only. I agree that we have to get AJ going and everything, but
there's a level of balance there. There is a level of like don't just throw it into a completely covered route, but like if it is one-on-one and they're stuck together and they're down the field, that's one you can go for. Don't go for one where a safety can still come in and help or a linebacker can come in and help. Don't put the ball in harm's way. There's a way to give your guy a chance without putting the ball in harm's way. You know what I mean? And I know that that's easier said than done, but we do talk about Jalen as being a top 5 quarterback, and if he is what we say he is, then I believe he's capable of doing that. I just think he has to be like, I think you can sense fear in him letting the ball go down the field without knowing that it's going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that he needs to sometimes give it a chance. I think that he's too, by the book. It's like, this is going to work because this guy, like he's so cerebral, like they always say, that he's like, this is going to work because their defender's going to do this and this guy's going to do this, so I know that's going to be open. But he won't throw, like, I can't remember the last time I saw him throw a 50-50 ball, to be completely honest, where it was just like, yeah, he's down there somewhere. Like, let's give him a chance, Or just like, a man down slant route where he was just like, yeah, let me try to, stick that ball in there. So I think he's just got to be a little bit more confident in his ability to, get the ball where it needs to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I understand completely what you're saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate at this point. It's just hard to say, like, to not be as good as you can. Like if you know something will work, why don't you take it? It's very obviously we all saw like his passing spree of only the one downfield to Dotson. And it's just annoying to say that like it's hard. You can't like really put in words. Like you're doing your best to put in words, but then it's like, well, you say you want it not to put it.
It is difficult. There's a fine line between putting the ball in harm's way into a tough situation versus giving your guy like an opportunity to make a play on the ball. And that's like football is a game of inches. Go ahead though. Sorry,
No. I was also going to say that's also on Petula. Like I know there's plays out there designed for AJ Brown. I know that he can be schematically, you can get him open. I just felt like they weren't ever. I just didn't see a play that was like, this is AJ's play. And I'm not saying you need to run that every single play. I'm just saying to get him involved, there's ways to get guys open even in a zone. Like
exactly. And I think it's too early to tell whether that was Kevin Petullo's play calling or if that was, AJ, not having a great game, which is possible. All of these things are possible. When it's week 1, you just don't know what you're seeing yet because we haven't seen a repeat of it. There's no pattern to go off of. So, I don't think that. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think Kevin Petullo needs to do a better job of making sure that the game's a little bit more, balanced. I think that, once they kind of stack the box and try to keep Saquon from getting any yards, that's when you really had to start dialing up the passing game and really, working those play actions and trying to, and start scheming your guys open. And we'll see if he makes adjustments like that on the fly moving forward. I do think that weather delay in the middle of the game, stopping the game for an hour right after halftime, definitely took a toll on everybody. I know as a football player that halftime's already a weird break that nobody really wants. Having to do it twice in a row probably is really weird, and it probably threw everybody for a loop, whether they knew it or not. So, some of that lacklusterness at the end of the game, I think, can be attributed to that. But I do think the offense needs to not do better because I thought that it looked good for like most of the game before the weather delay. I thought the offense looked great even, but I do think you're just leaving things on the table. You're just leaving opportunities on the table that are there and you're not taking them. And this team has the opportunity to be like 5, 6, 7 dimensional, and you're making it 2 or 3 dimensional. Just like I want to see them complete the puzzle. I don't think it's a need; it's more of a want. But I want to see them complete the puzzle to be as dominant as they can be.
Of course, I mean, and then just like kind of transitioning into some injuries that occurred. One of the mentions might be taken away this week with Dallas Goedert dealing with a knee injury, and he did not practice. Today is Thursday. He did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll see tomorrow, but I deem it very doubtful. He'll play. He's listed as questionable, but it seems as if we might not have Dallas this week, and he was the guy that got targeted the most on the entire offense last week. So something does need to change. I don't think Grant Calcaterra is going to do the same as what Goddard does, and it's going to have to change a little bit. Obviously, I can't complain about getting a win and whatnot. And then even Dickerson is supposed to be healthy this week. Like you said, having that delay and his back already being tight and hurt, how are you supposed to warm up again? Like, he's supposed to ramp it up again after he already got out of halftime, probably just kept trying to stretch it, move it around.
Yeah, he played for 5 minutes and then had to go right back to sit down for another hour,
And he's just in pain. It's like, you just can't make a man just like relax everything. And he's like, all right, I'm done. Like, my muscles don't want to work anymore. So but we'll have him back this week, which is a positive.
Great
and
positive.
Then, yeah. We signed. Are we good with Dallas? Do you want to make any other points, Dak, or?
No, yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. I think that 24-20. Was it 24-21 or 24-20? 24-20.
But
I,
three
I
whole
think
points
that,
scored in the second half.
yeah, I think that they could have afforded to, I told you my score prediction was 31-21. I think they should have gotten that extra touchdown, made that score a little bit deeper. I think they left some opportunities on the table, but I think that it was a good week one to build off of for having such a sloppy week and still looking as good as they did. I think that they look in good position to, keep it rolling. And we'll obviously jump right into Kansas City after this. But yeah, I think you had a few things you wanted to mention first.
So the Eagles signed Tank Bigsby this I guess
Traded
for a 5th and a 6th round pick for Tank Bigsby, who is the running back out of Jacksonville, who was supposed to split time with Travis Etienne. Reports are saying we want to use him as a kick returner mainly, but I believe it's because of Will Shipley's injury. It may be worse than it seems. He also did not practice this week.
He just got put on the IR.
Yeah, did he actually already get put on the IR?
Yeah, he has a broken rib. From what I understand, he's going to be out for 6 to 10 weeks.
Well, that's obviously why they traded for him. I know they didn't officially announce it yet. That's why I was annoyed by it. But yeah, so we got another running back that. What do you think about that trade? Do you think anything about Tank Bigsby being a big part of his offense, or you think AJ Dillon might step in front of him, or?
Honestly, I don't think you're going to see Tank do a whole lot of anything right off the bat, but I do think that there is some truth behind him being a kick returner first and foremost in their mind. But I certainly wouldn't be shocked to see him take over that secondary running back role. He's young. He obviously had a good year last year, and we just had a running back go down. That also, just like you said, doesn't feel like a coincidence. And AJ Dillon was a fringe guy to make the roster at a certain point, despite the fact that he, has had some success in his career. He had a really bad neck injury that seems to have really, set him back deeply. And he's looked good, but to actually take a load off of Saquon, I think you did need a second guy. And you've obviously been seeing more Shipley than Dillon in the game so far. So I think that they did have that in mind, that they want to be able to, have somebody take some of those carries away from Saquon so he doesn't keep racking up touches.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I think it was a great move, honestly. I think that it's, I'm not going to go as far as it's similar to a Jay Ajayi, because Jay Ajayi was a starter at the time and, had a huge impact. But it feels like relatively similar to going out and getting like a more of a top tier secondary guy that you can have a committee with and, kind of have a 1-2 punch going on. I don't think that you could I don't think you can really have that with Dillon the way that you can have that with Tank Bigsby.
Yeah. Well, this week we are heading to Kansas City at 4:25 game to take on Patrick Mahomes and the kind of injured / suspended Chiefs. The Chiefs lost their first game in where did they play? Brazil. Yeah, they played in Brazil against the Chargers. Xavier Worthy leaving the game just a couple snaps in because Travis Kelce decided to destroy him. And that watching that game, did you take anything away from it? Herbert looked great in my opinion. It looks like this team you can really pass on, and it doesn't seem maybe are the Chiefs dropping off a little bit, Matt, from their top tier, the crown of the league?
Hey, we had a few conversations in the offseason that I thought there was a chance that they might, but I'm not going to go too far yet. I'm going to say that it is, early it's early season. I'm not going to go too far one way or the other yet. I think it's going to be really tough for them to get out of an 0-2 hole if they are to lose to us this week. If they can keep it 1-1, it's obviously it'll be a big difference in the way their season goes. But we'll obviously see how this week is handled by them. But they certainly looked a lot more dysfunctional than they have in recent years. And that's obviously uncharacteristic from this team, who has been at the top of the league for the past probably 6 years now. And they didn't feel like they held that scary power that they usually do, which is a good sign for the rest of the league. Whether it's real or not, like I said, I'm going to give some time to fully develop. But I think that it gave me a lot of confidence going into this week. I think that their dysfunction looked a lot more red flaggy than the Eagles did. And I don't think that they have a lot of talent on that roster right now, especially with the injuries and suspensions that they're dealing with in the wide receiver room. They just don't have a lot of targets to go to. The offensive line is a little bit dysfunctional. The defense, you saw Chris Jones get in a fight with one of his guys in the back half of the game. You saw Travis Kelce get in a fight with one of his guys in the back half of the game. You're seeing leaders yelling at young guys like this on the field in front of the cameras, getting in like scuffle matches while you're losing a game. It like I said, looks uncharacteristic, and if this was my team, I'd be concerned for where they stand and where their future is going to lie. But like I said, I think it does give me confidence going into this week. I think the Eagles have a lot more talent on both sides of the ball, especially getting back Jalen Carter this week. I think they're going to have a very hard time running the ball against Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis because, like I said, I was very impressed with the way Jordan Davis played in the Cowboys game. So I think they're going to be a pretty good tandem this year. And even though I had high hopes for Moro Ojomo, you might not get to see as much of him as you may have wanted to because we had this conversation in the offseason. If you could see Jordan Davis as an every down D tackle, you're going to see Jordan Davis as an every down D tackle. So, I think that's exciting to see out of him. So I think that the Chiefs' running game may struggle a little bit, and Patrick Mahomes will always be Patrick Mahomes. I think he willed them into staying into that game last week against the Chargers. I think he made a lot of plays with his legs, with his arm, his side arms, his diving plays. He has a way of keeping you in games despite, even if he has declined at all, which I don't think you can possibly say yet. He just has a way of having some Mahomes magic go on and, doing his thing. And he will keep you in games. So I do think that, no matter what, it's going to be scary going against Mahomes and Andy Reid and, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, I guess. But they're running low on their reputation. And all those guys are getting Travis and Chris Jones are both getting long in the tooth. And the talent just isn't there for them. So I do see this, going favorably for the Eagles, and being favored going into Arrowhead is already a pretty indicative feeling of that.
Yeah. No, I mean they weren't able to get anything going running the ball wise against the Chargers, which is very nice to see. I'm not gonna hate. It's just gonna. I'm not hating on the Chiefs. I am hating on the Chiefs right now. I just really just want to just end their dynasty so badly. It'd be so nice to just kick them in the teeth while they're down already.
It would be really nice.
They want revenge in this game, but it's just as it's not like the Eagles don't want to just keep kicking them while they're down. This team is a great team. This team is a dynasty. They're going for a three-peat last year. Obviously, we were able to win that, but they want revenge. Patty wants revenge. I'm just looking at the injury report, actually, that Worthy was limited practice today. I don't know if he's going to play.
I wouldn't count on it, considering a dislocated shoulder.
Yeah.
I have an idea of how those injuries feel, and I would guess even if he's capable, he might try, but it wouldn't be a good idea. So
yeah.
Not even from an Eagle standpoint, if I were an athletic trainer, I would advise them not to, but he technically might be able to, and he might override it. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. But Patty willed him in that game. He made Hollywood Brown look like his old self, and it was a relatively close game toward the end. But Herbert looked very good in that game, and I think we're going to need the same thing from Jalen. I think he's going to need to hit some people deep down the field. I think he's going to need to get the passing game going because it is very susceptible to that. And I think honestly, the Chargers, who Harbaugh loves to run the football, wasn't really able to get anything started with Hampton. He ran the ball 15 times and got only 48 yards. And I know they're missing Slater on that O-line, but it just the Chiefs had a way, even in the Super Bowl, of shutting down Saquon, quote unquote, shutting down Saquon, as much as they could. So I think we're going to need to move the ball through the air, and I think Jalen's going to need to step up and, like we were speaking about earlier, just try to just get people involved, get the passing game going down the field more, and more over the middle of the field. I just feel like we're just waiting for guys just to go to the sideline and get those dip and dunk passes.
That's what
And
I'm saying. I really feel like he has to use those like corner routes or like like in dig routes, posts, like deep slants, and like I want to see more of like it doesn't feel like we're using the whole field.
yeah, and I maybe that's Sirianni and Patullo limited playbook. Again, I can't speak on any of that because we only see it called 1 week.
It's too soon to tell,
It's
unfortunately.
too soon to tell. It does seem like though that we are using Saquon a little bit more in the passing game. We saw him line out in in the slot and stuff, just at different formations, which
Well,
was
speaking of that, is it time to just say that Saquon doesn't have hands?
yeah.
Like, yeah, I think it's time to say that Saquon really just doesn't have good hands. Like, we like last year when he dropped that Falcons ball, we were all like, he catches 10 out of 11 of those, like it'll never happen again. I actually feel like he drops most of the passes thrown his way.
Hey man, he don't hate the guy too much. He's
I never will. That man is an absolute monster at football. But if that might be his biggest deficiency.
it might be. That's so funny. But as long as the ball is in his hands, I'm happy. But
Agreed.
it's
Agreed.
yeah, it's a little bit
I don't
brutal.
know if you can think back to last year, but like almost every catch he did have, he caught with his body. Like,
You know, he's trying.
hey, it was an observation. That's all.
You're not wrong. But yeah, I'm excited for this week, and I know before the season we're gonna get our prediction in a second. I had this marked down as a loss, but it just I'm changing my mind already. I
I
think
have to. Don't worry.
I mean it's just like obviously one game is never going to be your best game, and you can't judge another team off their worst game being their worst game. But I think we have a way more talented roster. If they are, which is just so surprising that Worthy is practicing. But if he doesn't play, I think that's a huge loss for them. Again, you saw that happen. And then Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and old Kelsey don't really scare me too much. The defense is whatever. Drew Tranquil, Chris Kalafis, like guys like that, they're not super intimidating. We saw this in the Super Bowl. We just saw this a couple of months ago, this matchup.
I'm actually really curious what direction they're going to take from a defensive standpoint. Like, are they going to try to do the same game plan? Or are they going to try to like change it up? What if you do change it up? What do you change to? Like, your game plan was stop Saquon last time. Are you going to try to not stop Saquon and let him try to beat you this time? Like, I don't really know.
I mean, it's. I feel like that's going to be every team's plan this year, because just because it's just such a big part of our offense, such a big time in possession, and like they can't. The league's on notice that he got 2,000 yards last year. It's not just a trend that after a running back gets 2,000 yards that they decline a little bit. It's sometimes not even their fault. It's just teams will game plan and say, "All right, we'll take that
Yeah, we
away
can't
from
let
you."
this guy beat us.
Yeah, and obviously, like we saw in the Dallas game that we were able to do, we were able to spread the ball out a little bit more in other ways. But like just even taking away Saquon and Jalen being our leading rusher, it takes away a lot. Like, and I think they're gonna have the same type of game plan. I don't see why they won it. I know obviously it didn't work out for them in their favor, but um, if they don't turn over the ball so many times and Patty's able to be Patty, I I do see the Chiefs being in it. I just really think that this says Eagles written all over it. It's just crazy to say, but I'm going Eagles 31-24. They win by a touchdown. I really think we're able to put up points on his team. I think Patty will make it close toward the end. I just really I don't look, Hollywood Brown, it doesn't really scare me as a number one. Juju, like I think Adoree Jackson can actually guard Juju. It's just crazy to say. I know it sounds horrible. It'll probably torch us now. But we'll really see it at Adoree Jackson this week about if he can play football at all or not. Especially if Worthy's not playing because
I agree.
like I know Hollywood's Hollywood, but he hasn't been that way and in the past. So I'm excited. What do you got for us?
Not a whole lot. I think you covered most of it. I think that, they have a bit of a they have a solid defense. I don't think they have a great defense. So I do want to see us take advantage of that. I want to see the passing game get a little bit more active this time around. I like you said, I think that you're probably going to see them still try to make sure you stop Saquon. So Jalen's got to, use his arm and get people open. I want to see AJ get involved this week, but on the other hand, obviously they know we're going to try to get the ball to AJ this week. So I'm curious to see what kind of game plan the Chiefs are going to come out with, but I'm still confident going into it because I know that the Eagles have so many ways to attack you that I think that they kind of haunt the Chiefs in their head a little bit right now. Like I have a feeling that they're going to be haunting the Chiefs for a little while. So, I think that they're going to handle that pretty well. And on the defensive side, like you said, you're just going to have to see Adoree step up. You're going to see how he can handle, not so great wide receivers, but a great quarterback. Are those guys still going to get open? Is Adoree still going to struggle? We don't really know yet. And when you have Jalen Carter in the game, how big of a difference is it genuinely going to make? Is that run game going to be, any bit of a force the way it was last week? A lot of question marks still because it's so early. But from what I saw last week from both teams, I feel like I can confidently say that I think the Eagles are going to win this week. And I'll just go ahead and state my prediction as being a 28-21 win in Arrowhead for the Eagles.
Sweet, dude. I mean, on the defense, for the defensive side for us, I just would like to see us get a recorded sack. That'd be nice. I want to see us put pressure on Patty. But according to Yahoo, we didn't have a recorded sack. I thought that Nolan Smith got one, but I guess the penalty negated it. So they say we got zero. They never recorded one in the box score. But regardless of that, I want to see us just keep hitting Patty, just like we did in the Super Bowl. If Pacheco were to beat us, I'd rather them try to beat us with Pacheco because he coming off an injury and he did not look great running the ball against the Chargers. Just keep putting pressure on Patty, make him get the ball out quick, and don't let him have too much time to work his magic because that's how you get Hollywood streaking down the field. And these random guys like Taquan Thornton getting open for no reason and stuff like that. So, I mean, it sounds crazy to say that like the Chiefs have fallen from grace, but like it's not going to last forever. And I know I can't. It's like, and then we'll come back next week and be like, oh, Patty's a god, and we suck.
Too soon to say, but it certainly feels that way, and we'll get more resolution on how clear that is this week.
Yeah. But yeah, dude, I'm excited for this week. I know it's just funny how preseason we both had this marked as a loss, and now when it comes up to the game, it's like, well,
it certainly felt like a spot that, like, why would they lose there? But I don't think it was as expected for them to come out of the gate as slow as they did. And on top of that, I think it is pretty clear that the roster is not necessarily the most talented roster you've seen a Chiefs team be. So I think that with all that, added together, I think people are, again, coming to too quick of a conclusion, but it's an educated guess that they're not going to be as good as they've been this year. And, I think it's pretty fair, honestly, based on what I've seen. So, but then again, I feel like a lot of people can say the exact same thing about the Eagles. So, I'm being a little bit biased in that regard. So we'll see how this week goes. Did you give your prediction?
Yeah, I said 31-24.
31-24.
So
okay.
We both have a touchdown.
All right. Well, that conversation took a little bit of time, so we're honestly going to wrap this episode up. But I do want to say next week we do want to get into a little bit more of a fun segment. We'll probably start the episode with it next week and just kind of do it around the league, talk about some of the fun things that happened, standout performers, big time storylines, and we'll just get some of that basic news out to you guys to get started on our regular Eagles coverage. So stay tuned for that next week. We're excited to do that. We wanted to fit that into the back half of our episode, but we just got so excited talking about our birds, So we'll get you guys involved next week with that. And make sure you guys are staying tuned with all of our episodes. Obviously, if you keep track with us, you know that we record an episode every week. So come in to check in on our preview for the game as well as our review for the past week's game. And like I said, our new segment, we will try to start, adding in some of that around the league stuff so that you guys can keep up with some of the other teams as well. So if you did like this video, please make sure to click the like button in the corner. And if you enjoy our content, make sure you come back every week and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate you guys for your views, for your likes, for everything you do for us. So thank you. And we will be back again next week, hopefully talking about a big win in Arrowhead. So, Maz, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just go Birds, baby.
Yes, sir.
Love it.
Go Birds, and we will see you guys next week.